Hi, I'm Debbie Georgatos. Welcome to my show, America, Can We Talk? Today, we're going to talk about the Supreme Court Barrett battle, Katie Hopkins and the Freedom Conference home run, and Trump taxes in the New York Times. And of course, I'll tell you why these stories matter to you. Stay tuned.
Debbie Georgatos, host of America Can We Talk, is an author, attorney, and political analyst whose mission is to inspire the American political conversation about preserving liberty in the best country on earth.
And welcome again to America Can We Talk and to today's First Five. I'm Debbie Georgatos. There are a lot of stories we're going to have to cover relating to the Supreme Court nomination by President Trump of Amy Coney Barrett to fill the seat vacated recently by Ruth Ginsburg. We'll talk about a lot of legal issues. All I want to hit on today in today's First Five is this argument that the left is turning to, the same argument made by Senator Dianne Feinstein when this same judge was before the Senate Judiciary Committee when she was nominated to serve on the Circuit Court of Appeals. I want to ask Matthew, the very wonderful producer, to play a clip by Dianne Feinstein, and then I'm going to tell you why she's so out of line in saying what she said.
Law is totally different. And I think in your case, Professor, when you read your speeches, the conclusion one draws is that the dogma lives loudly within you. And that's of concern when you come to big issues that large numbers of people have fought for years in this country.
There she is, Dianne Feinstein, her famous line, which will probably be a tagline forever, related to the future Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett, "Your dogma lives loudly in you." And that's what I want to talk about in today's First Five. Number one, the choice of the term dogma. The word dogma is a deliberate choice because dogma carries a connotation of rigidity, intolerance, belligerence, unfairness, just kind of someone in a closed-minded way latching on to something. And that's what she's trying to say, is that she, Feinstein, sees Amy Coney Barrett's commitment to her Catholic faith as dark, as narrow-minded, as intolerant. Now, the word dogma actually does just mean a set of beliefs that are tied to, it can be a church usually, but it's a set of beliefs that you actually believe are true. The person in that exchange who is actually exemplifying dogma is Senator Dianne Feinstein. She's the one who's basically arguing, because you are a Catholic, this nominee before me, since you're Catholic and you actually believe in the doctrines of the Catholic faith, of the Christian faith, your values, your views are intolerable. They're unacceptable. You cannot possibly believe in those values and think you can serve on the Supreme Court. It's Feinstein who is narrow-mindedly saying, because she is locked into the left-wing pro-abortion view, that anyone who might threaten that view, anyone who might value life, is not to be tolerated. Feinstein's the one that is truly, if you want to use the word dogmatic or dogma in a negative way, she's the one. But secondly, stop and think about the founding of America, because part of what happens with the American left is they're trying to make the argument that America was just founded on a blank slate. No ideas, anything goes, any values are good enough for us. We have no founding values. That's actually an unspoken assumption by the American left. We have no founding values, we have no founding identity, and anyone with values is somehow intruding on the identity of America. But the exact opposite is true. America was founded, as they say, the birth certificate of America, the Declaration of Independence, actually recites who we are at a very core level. The idea that we all created equal, that we have rights from God because we were born, that all of us have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness just because we were born. That's the birth certificate of America. Those are unflappable ideas. Those are ideas we do not throw away. And these are all ideas that are very contrary to the direction the left is trying to take this country. And this is why Dianne Feinstein and other leftists are so rattled by Amy Coney Barrett, because she actually believes in she believes in her faith. She believes in the founding values of America. She believes in the idea of the virtues and value of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. She believes men are created equal, that we have a right to life. Dianne Feinstein is really trying to tell America that the leftists in this country reject the founding ideas of our Declaration of Independence. That's what she's saying. She's saying we find these ideas abhorrent, the idea that someone could believe in the value of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness and defend that. That's what Feinstein is finding offensive. And I want to ask you to think about a couple questions. Just imagine for a moment if you had a nominee for the Supreme Court who was an avowed communist, who actually believed in the communist doctrine. Do you think that that person could actually follow the commitment that judges must make to American law, to the Declaration of Independence, to the Constitution, to the right to own private property, to the right to live in peace, to have the rights that are spelled out in the Bill of Rights? No. A communist person would be incapable. Someone truly committed to communism could not legitimately serve on the Supreme Court. The same is true if someone were committed to Sharia, to Islamic law. If someone said, how I see the world is Islamic law, Sharia is the only right, the highest law, and my goal is to push Sharia in every direction I can in America, that person is not qualified to sit on the United States Supreme Court. America has, for lack of a better term, founding dogma, founding ideas that are very consistent with Christian ideology, which is the basic notion that we have, you and each individual have the right to live in an ordered society with a guarantee from the very beginning of our country, the guarantee that you'll be treated equally, that we have a rule of law, we have a system of justice, that you're guaranteed the right to pursue life, liberty, and your version of happiness. That is founding American dogma. It's the same dogma, if you want to use that term, that Amy Coney Barrett embraces, is what the Christian faith embraces, and this is why Dianne Feinstein and others on the American left find her so troublesome, because she will stand up for her values and she will stop the left in its tracks from using the court system, from imposing leftist ideas onto American society when they couldn't get those ideas passed in elected legislative bodies. What will happen with Amy Coney Barrett, besides that she will get confirmed after all the screaming and shouting is done, she'll be confirmed, she'll sit on the court, and we'll have a court a tiny bit closer to the idea of what a court is supposed to do, which is to apply the law, not make up law, and not give credence and not act as a legislature moving America in the direction the left wants, instead of doing their job as judges, which is to follow and apply the law and the Constitution. And that, my very fine friends, is today's First Five. I told you before we started the show that I've been telling you the last couple of weeks, I hosted a conference here in the Dallas area called American Women and American Freedom. It was this past Saturday. To say that it was a home run, and besides it was fun, does not begin to describe. It was a great conference, full of energy, full of enthusiasm. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about who spoke there, but I don't want to waste any more time before I introduce our guest in the studio today. Our kickoff, keynote, and lit the place on fire speaker was Katie Hopkins, and we have her here in the studio today. So, welcome, Katie Hopkins.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for having me to your studio.
It's so nice to have you here, and honest to goodness, you did really light the place on fire. It was just we're going to talk about some of the other speakers and run through all that they did, but I'll tell you one takeaway I had, and that I want to really talk about why you're in America, but one takeaway I had is that if people listen to the media, you would think that most of America is with the protesters, with the rioters. Most of America is very down on the idea of America, and that most of America is just anti-conservatism and anti-President Trump. But that room, we had a great crowd, a huge crowd. We had a great turnout. But one takeaway was these people, they almost seemed like they were just waiting for someone to say it's okay to be happy. It's okay to love America.
That's exactly right. It's a perfect analogy, this sort of sense of exactly how I see it as well. In the old days when you used to have like gas hobs on your cooker and you could turn on the gas and you can hear, people still have them, hear the gas. And all it needs is a little light for it to go.
Yeah.
It's like that. So we have this idea at the moment because everything is so repressive and locked down. The mask, you can't do that. You won't walk here 6 feet apart. You stand in that corner, all of that. Actually, you bring people together and you give them a moment that is the spark, a little bit of joy. and the place just erupts. And that's what we saw at, what were we, 8 in the morning, 8:30, early, I mean.
It was
for people,
early, yes.
200 and whatever people in a room, 8:30 in the morning, and they are clapping, they're cheering, they're on their feet, because you bring them a little bit of that joy and energy and remind them that actually the most important thing about our side, if there is such a thing as sides, is that we want the best for each other. And the thing about your guests in that room on Saturday is that all of us just want whatever's going to make you the happiest, we want you to do that. And what a great side to be on right before an election, a side that just wants the best for each other and wants to remind each other what it feels like to be around each other and listen to the noise of each other again. You know, that lovely kind of back group kind of sort of chatter that we've been missing so much.
We have been missing, especially women. There were more women than men, but there were some men there, to be clear. Men were invited, but definitely more women. And just, you could hear that noise of women chattering and happy, a lot of laughing and talking in between. Just people were happy. It was wonderful. And I do think it is really simple, symptomatic or emblematic about what America is. I think this is all over the country. People are waiting for someone to say, it's okay to be normal again. It's okay to be happy. They want to have someone tell them that and not say, no, actually go home, stay home, put your mask back on. They want to be told, they want to be reinforced by each other that we're ready for happiness.
Yeah, that this is okay. And I think that's been one of the things as I've moved my way around America so far on this kind of campaign of mine to support your president, is that by having events, you know, 250 people in a backyard in Alta Loma, 250 people in Murrieta, you know, places in California where you're not allowed to gather in groups of more than 10, you see people walk in, you see them look around and see all these other people. They've not got masks on, so you're seeing people smile for the first time. And it's almost like giving people permission to remember what it is about what we've been missing and the fact that actually we want to make America great again. But also, much more importantly, we want people to feel great again and to remember that that's what we're all about. And I think that's what these events are doing. And if I can encourage anybody to even get 10 people together, it's really making a difference to the way people feel and putting new energy into our side.
Oh, I love that. And actually, I want to go there since you began talking about it. So you're in America, you are still a British citizen, but you're in America for quite an extended stay and traveling the country during this election season to support President Trump. So why? Why is this so important to you to do?
It's so important because I have children of my own. So I have 3 children, they're 16, 15 girls and an 11-year-old boy. My country will fall. England has already fallen. We're already on our way to being a minority. I'll be a minority in my own country in 10 years' time. I'm here as part of this fight because we're looking to you for hope. And in order to help bring that, which we can talk a little bit more about in a moment, I'm sure, I've had to break into America. We're currently banned. I think I'm the only Brit in your country, but I broke into America to help join this fight for your president because it matters to us, because you are hope for Western Europe and Western civilization.
You know, I am going to go in many directions. Maybe we'll just do it quickly now. How did you break into America? Before we get to all the else you're talking about, how did you get here?
Yeah, so I'm not allowed to be here. I can't be here. I don't really like being told no. My father will confirm that.
That's so surprising.
Yeah. And I do believe, actually, as a kind of ethos for everybody listening and your lovely listeners and viewers, the time for asking permission is over. So I went to see which country I could get to, and that list got smaller and smaller. Not Portugal, not Italy. Now you're not allowed to go to France. But there was one place that you could still go, Barbados. So with 2 hormonal teenage daughters at home, I was like, oh, 14 days isolation in Barbados. Went and did that. Then they cancelled my flight to LA. I got on a flight to JFK, got to the airport, and was allowed into your country. I have a media visa, but the point is I still wasn't really allowed to be here, but by doing 15 days in isolation, I think I'm one of the only British people that's been able to break back into the country.
I love that you did that. Your spirit, your determination is just, well, it's infectious and it's amazingly effective. So, but I really want to get at, you know, you have a homeland, you have family, you have a husband and 3 children, as you just mentioned. So why is it so important to you to get Trump reelected? What do you mean by that? Why are you so excited about that?
Yes, I wish I could put up on screen, you know, the emails from people in the UK today, yesterday, the day before. This very dark realization now from people. I've been talking about it for 10 years, but people waking up to the fact that we are on the final path. You know, we do fall to Islam in the next 5 years, realistically. I'm no longer allowed to fly my English flag because it's a racist symbol. You know, when
and you're home in England, you can't fly your English flag.
It's a racist symbol. People can report you to the police for that. People have been utterly complicit in the lockdown. I mean, and to a degree, I know that you'll say it's true in America too, but in England, because we have socialised healthcare, people stood on their front doorsteps, in front of their house, their front door, clapping at the sky on a Thursday night at 8 p.m. because we were instructed to do so. We had to go out and clap for our socialised healthcare.
Oh.
Is a show of solidarity for what is in fact the brute force of the left. And also, you know, just in terms of demographics, by 2030, Muslim births outnumber births to all other. In my country, the number one name is Mohammed and the number two is Muhammad. And most critically, I think, primary schools, 72% to 83% in London, Muslim majority schools where English is not the first language. So the point rather being that my country is falling and will fall. And one day, in some future place, we will look to America to rebirth Western civilization. And for now, we will pull back. My Jewish friends to Israel, and many Christians pulling back to Hungary and Poland, where they will not let our Christian culture fall.
But what happened with the election in England? People were pretty excited in the UK because Boris Johnson was elected, and he talked he sounded like more like President Trump. His hair is even in the ballpark of President Trump. So what happened? I thought that was part of the reason to withdraw to do the whole Brexit, was to end the immigration policies dictated by the EU so you could stop the Islamic flooding into England. So what happened?
It was sort of a last hurrah. You know, 12th of December, Boris went back to the people. He asked for the mandate to get Brexit done, and people went out and backed him. And I actually think there's a parallel story there for the US. People went out and voted Boris because it was the right thing for the country. But somewhere in between the 12th of December and where we are today, COVID happened. Boris Johnson was crippled by the COVID. Whatever happens to these leaders, I don't know what they get them with. I don't know if it's a briefcase or I don't know what it is that turns them. They turned Boris. And now we have the same playbook that you have here, or you've seen in places here. We've got the follow the science, the ridiculous science, the caseloads building, shutting down the country once more. And we've now Boris Johnson has shut down the UK. We're back to no work, no play, no going out, masks everywhere. And it's
without numbers to justify that.
No, just now, well, you know how they did? They switched it out, didn't they? They exchanged deaths for cases and made cases the thing, whereas we all know cases are not relevant at all.
Right. If you listen to the show very often, you know we've had many doctors on the show making this point, this explanation. It doesn't matter how many new cases they report, and the more they test, of course they have more positive results to report. It matters, is the death rate going down? Is the hospitalization rate going down? Everything in America is trending the right way except the government. But back to the UK, the other thing about Boris Johnson was I thought that was part of the stopping Islamic immigration, and you were and the kind of Islamic takeover of UK. You were telling me something earlier about even if the formal policies have changed, what's happening really, what's happening informally.
Yes, it's almost like if you imagine two different conversations are happening. There's one conversation which is sort of the stage, the front stage, the piece that says we're going to have Brexit and we're going to take back control, you know, as a line. We're going to be a sovereign nation. We're going to be able to control immigration, which we all buy into, right? Or certainly
we're saying, yeah.
We're like, yes, good. But actually that was just the facade. That was like the shop window. What's actually going on, the mechanics of the store, the staffing of the store, the way the store is being run back behind the scenes, is that the processing of human flesh is such a profitable activity, it's never going to stop. Every single day, as we sit here, in the UK, the border on Dover, where those white cliffs look towards France, is flooded every single day with these inflatables. I suspect many of your viewers will have seen the pictures of inflatable boats arriving 100, 200, 500 migrants. Those are just the illegals that we see. They're being pushed out by France that says, yeah, keep going, because of course France has no reason to try and stop them. And they become our problem. And the moment they step foot on British soil, they are entitled to accommodation, to income, to schooling, to legal aid, and of course they disappear into the network. And that, for that to still be going on every single day, has to be something the government is allowing to happen, and Boris Johnson is complicit in the movement of an Islamic takeover of our country.
Yeah, it's funny. We used to talk about, you've been on my show before, and numerous other experts, Middle Eastern experts. We had Claire Lopez and John Guandola, many people talking about Islamic immigration as a tool to Islamic takeover. It is written about in Islamic literature. It's not speculation. It is a method of making Islamic takeover happen through just using immigration. And we used to talk about it a lot last year, and maybe the last 5 or more years was very prominent in the news. And COVID kind of pushed all that to the side. Now we're talking about COVID and the rules about COVID, not realizing that even as we're focused on COVID and shutdowns and masks, all of that Islamic immigration, Islamic takeover is still happening. I think people were not we've like lost sight of that.
Yeah, exactly right. It's like, you know, if you have like a Labrador or a dog, right, in your kitchen and you go and get a treat from the cupboard, you know, at one point the dog's looking this way, but if you get that treat and do this, the dog follows the treat, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like we do that as well, and the media knows it and they play it super well. If they want to, and actually Donald Trump plays it well when he wants to do the same. I mean, he does it spectacularly and I love it when he does it, but they almost took this COVID thing and went, right, follow this. And whenever they do that to us, whenever they have the dog looking at the treat, be aware that what they're actually up to is going to be far darker. Like the thing you're not talking about now is the thing we should be talking about. And so, you know, I really get that sense that they skewed us away. And the examples here, of course, we can think of it as a British problem. But I've just come from Minnesota. And that is a perfect model of England in one of your states. So Minnesota, a very red state, of course, but you get in, and I spent some horrible days in downtown Minneapolis. Same model, same playbook, flood it with Muslim migrants, flood it with people who will vote with the opposition, and all of a sudden that state is blue, even when in its heart and in its veins and everything it is red.
Oh, it was Heartland America. I always tell our listeners, my dad was from there, my mom from Iowa. We spent every summer growing up in Minneapolis or Minneapolis area. I mean, it just, to me, it's all the Norwegian Lutherans. That's who I expect to see there, you know.
And then that's, you know, we mustn't get away also from the joy, because the joy is after doing 7 days in downtown Minneapolis and some very not great things happening. George Floyd, I was in Cedar Riverside, which is really, if you could find a hell on earth, that's pretty close to it. I watched a black man walk up to diners at a restaurant, take the food off their plates with his hands and walk off down the street. It is an utterly lawless place. You take yourself out into Minnesota, into the cornfields, and we held a rally, and it was so exciting. Like the energy again, the lighting of the fire, 2,000 people in a cornfield in Minnesota screaming for Trump. You know, that's also a truth of your country.
I hear this so often from people outside the cities. I hear you drive through the countryside. I'm hearing it from a friend who spent a lot of the summer back on the East Coast. Once you get away from the big cities, it's small towns and villages and little town centers filled with Trump signs.
But even, you know, Beverly Hills, I would say to anybody who happens to be passing through LA, I know it's not typical, but Beverly Hills Trump rally on a Saturday. So 400, 500 people, volume, noise, all these brilliant people. Then we went to walk through down Beverly, up Rodeo, and a really emotional thing. So we're going along, everyone's joyful, the flags, it's all very, and of course there's diners, you know, leftist diners in these restaurants on Rodeo, and they're making gestures I won't repeat here, but we've seen them and they involve, you know.
One finger salute, yeah.
Right. But actually what happened next to these diners on Rodeo, gentlemen often stood silently to let us know that they were with us.
Yeah.
And there was something really emotional about that, just one after another, these gentlemen standing to say, I'm not with this person making that gesture, I'm with you. And I feel that's that was kind of like a biblical level thing of standing, even when you're sat next to someone who's hostile to you, to separate yourself from that. I really love that.
Oh, I love that too. So your big mission from now through Election Day is just to bring joy, to bring energy to the pro-Trump movement. Is that right?
Yeah. I thought I came here to fight for Trump. I'm going to be part of this. I'm going to get everyone 4 more years. You know, what am I? Some one-woman army? I don't know.
Kind of, but go ahead.
Kind of. But instead, it's become something so different. I learned it very quickly. It's about giving people a reason to gather, getting people to look and listen to each other in rooms of people, and to remember that this is the power of our side. And I love this idea that you spoke of in your first 5 of the dogma. What is it? The dogma lives large within you. You know, I am a straight, white, Christian, conservative, nationalist, patriot, and the dogma lives, you know, large within me. And it's going to live larger in the next 30 days. And that's because I'm proud of it, because it's my heart and it's my values. And I'm proud of every American that we bring, because guess what? They don't need to be on our side. They don't need to have ever voted Republican in their life. Many have not. But at a time when your choice is joy or darkness, and your choice is law and order, respect for decent police officers, men and women, or spitting, hating, hurting, shooting, this is the only side. And so that's really been my mission, is bring people together, welcome newcomers, and even if you just want to be part of us for a little bit, come join, because we're a really good side to be part of.
We are. I like your line. This is the only side. That's very true. You know, I think people, we've talked about this in my show before quite often, but you know, people think political activity needs to be knocking on doors or making speeches, and they kind of think, aren't we kind of wasting time with these Trump boat parades, or, you know, we drive through cities and honk horns, wave flags, what difference does it make? But just tell me what difference it makes.
Oh, you know, my little hairs on my little arms are on end, because right now, one of the things, you know, and I love obviously communication of all sorts, this mask thing, the looking down thing, the visor, the gloves, what people have made them is small compressed people that can't express. You bring noise and horns honking and flags flying and fluttering in the breeze, open people's eyes to it, see people smile. It's so powerful right now. And actually, I believe what leftist governors don't realize they've done is they've given us such an immaculate tool. Before, we relied on things like yard signs or pin badges, you know, Trump Pence or something, right? You watch people with these masks. Watch the way they maybe take them off. If they take them off like this, you know they're with us, right? The way people manifest their mask shows you who's with us. And it's become almost a gift. And lockdown, I think, may work actually in Trump's perfect favor, because it's pushed people to the point where they say, no, this is not right. I never signed up to be told where I'm allowed to walk, when and with who, or for my favorite restaurant with my, you know, low-paid staff to shut down. I never signed up for that. And I think it's going to work with us in the end.
Oh, I really do too. I think this amazing era in American history of COVID has made people really think about, how much do I value freedom? What do I think is my right as an American citizen? One thing to be told by the government, you know, XYZ is a problem, here are some tips, here's what you might want to do, but to be told, you'll be told when you can leave your house, how many people can come into your business, whether the business can even be open, whether you can be out of your house for a non-permitted reason. I think people are starting to just get that spunk of freedom again. Say, no, you don't tell me that.
Yeah, that is not your place. And I think what the other thing it's done, it's been a good education in some regards. I'm definitely guilty of this, and I speak as an outsider, and I respect that I'm a foreigner. But I never really, until it happened in my country too, respected the importance of voting for your mayor and voting for your governor. Those always seemed like additional or peripheral or somewhat, I don't know, you know, sort of a frittery. But of course it isn't. It's fundamental to your ability to operate as a free citizen, is to have the person that you choose as governor. And I think this has been an education in that sense. I think your gubernatorial elections will be really, really interesting, because people recognize now the power that office has.
Oh, absolutely. From city councils and mayors and governors around this country. School board is huge. People are realizing the freedom that I'm seeing eviscerate in front of me is not the president, it's not the Congress, it's right down here at the local level. You know, I want to talk about Trump for just a moment. You know, I can't remember when I met you, but I know that, I don't know if I knew you in 2016, but in 2016, I had the reaction many people did, which was, I'm used to more traditional people running for office. I kind of like I like Ted Cruz very much, because he understood the Constitution, he's a lawyer, he's Christian, he's smart as all get out. That sounds good, you know, check, 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 good with him. But I think Trump came along at a time when the left in this country was so emboldened after 8 years of Obama, so emboldened with their leftist path, and we needed a fighter. We needed someone who could do even more than just hold on the Constitution. And President Trump came along and he gave people hope. And it really wasn't ideological hope. It wasn't, yes, he has an R by his name, yay, he's a traditional Republican. He loves America, and they saw the America the Great under assault by the left, and they thought, this guy can do it. And I think that's how you have seen him from abroad. This is a guy, this is a fighter.
Yeah, this is the guy that's, you know, so if your Ted Cruz is your guy, you know, playing cricket in his cricket whites and, you know, abiding by the rules of the game, which he does, and he looks splendid in his cricket whites.
And he is brilliant and good, but yes.
Exactly. He's all of those things, and those are respectable and a brilliant thing. You know, Trump is your, what is he, WW, what's your wrestling thing in the ring, you know, half naked with a bit of spandex hanging off him and a few pretty ladies, rawr, you know, oiled up. That is Trump, and it turns out that's precisely what we needed. I think it also calls to many of us who realize that the facade of perfection only takes us so far. Many of us, I'm talking about myself here, are deeply flawed individuals. You know, all of my faults are probably, if you Google me, you know, my flaws are out there for everybody to see, and I have very many of them. This idea that we need perfect politicians is something of the past a little, and real people do real things, and he's a real guy.
Oh, he's a real guy for sure. And on that subject of Trump right now, you know, I do see people who are allegedly on the right side of the aisle, but I really don't care for this or that about President Trump. And to me, I would say, okay, you don't have to like him. You don't have to invite him to Thanksgiving dinner. You don't have to ask him to teach your kids etiquette. What you want someone, though, for the job we need done, you have to find the person who will do that job. And when you look at the political, what we have in the horizon in America, you're either going to have this leftist mob, which has just been flooding the streets in America with protesters, that has been behind the influx of Islamic immigration, that is pushing a radical climate agenda, all of that leftist mob, all represented by Joe Biden.
I think that's exactly right. I also think there's something about selflessness right now, right? So we all think we need to matter, and our individual opinion needs to matter, and our views on this or that needs to matter. And to me, it's nothing about that. It's about this sort of arrowhead. Our only job right now is to push Trump over the line. So what I think about this or that, or you think about that, doesn't matter. Our only job is to like get behind, like a little rugby team, you know, get behind the guy and push him forwards. And one of the things the left does very well, actually, is it presents a unified front. It holds the line. Even they don't have their little disagreements in public. They think their thoughts, but they hold the line. And what I'm calling on people to do, what you're doing as well, is asking our team, hold the line, push Trump over, push him forwards, and then we can all discuss your little issues later. For now, what do we have, 30 whatever days to get this guy over the line?
Yeah, it's very few days. In fact, early voting has started in a lot of places. So yeah, we're actually, we've entered the line phase. Yeah. So I want to ask you, this is a bit off track, but you were talking earlier about millions of people in Europe who are just praying for President Trump's victory. I thought you had, in addition to Boris Johnson, I thought you had other seeming leaders emerging in Western Europe who seem to be on the bandwagon of preserving Western civilization, preserving freedom, preserving the Judeo-Christian values. So what happened to all those folks?
I can't help but believe the strategic level takedown of the rise of the right in Europe has absolutely, they have pulled this off to perfection. You know, there was a point there, I can't think how long ago it was, but it doesn't feel very long ago, 8 months ago, the right was on the rise. You know, yes. I remember standing and being like, we are going to get Brexit. And then in Austria, we had, you know, people rising up. The right were doing brilliantly. Salvini in Italy, Spain, we had Vox rising. Even in Germany, Merkel was much weakened. I was so excited because we had Trump as well. You know, this was my sort of they did such a great job of hollowing that out. You know, they specifically targeted Austria, removed that government. In Germany, they crippled people with COVID and COVID regs. Salvini was taken out with legal action that he acted illegally towards the migrant hordes. They almost had a special way of taking out each one of these leaders. Whatever they did to Boris, they did it effectively too. So the hollowing out of that pushback has been complete, and what we're now left with is, I believe, the certainty that we will fall away. And the only sort of the heart of this is that Hungary and Poland still resist, and I believe it's part of their history. You know, in their recent history, they know what it's been like to have been
to push off communist aggressors in the recent
to have been taken and to had to try to get rid of something. They can feel it more acutely, and they didn't let it happen. And when Merkel tried to flood their country with Muslim migrants, they reinforced their walls. They sent the army down to defend them. In fact, you know, one of the things I like that's a naughtier fact is they also sent pigs on strings. And the army patrolled their borders with pigs on strings. And I say that more as a sort of the dogma lives large in Hungary and Poland, and I love them deeply. So we will retreat to that. And we're seeing this already, and America's seeing it too. The silent movement of people, the retreat to defendable space, something South Africans know well. But people are already pulling back. You can feel it here, you know, the move out of California to Texas to Florida, or maybe I'll go to Arizona. We have it so our Jewish communities will be out of Paris within the decade, back to Israel, and our Christian, you know, families. I've had people message me daily asking, where do we go? Where do we go? And, you know, I get emails from elderly couples, 70, 80-year-olds, my parents' age, saying, you know, I'm glad my time is nearly up, so I don't have to see my country fall. And that's the, you know, when we talk of things, sometimes we can forget that there's real hearts and souls in this, and those are the hearts of people who often fought for their country, and know that, you know, know that they may just miss the fall of Europe.
You know, I will tell you, I'm so glad you're here to give a first-hand report from UK and from Western Europe, because I think there are many Americans, especially because we got sidetracked by COVID, you know, the dog with the treat, got sidetracked, that we don't really recognize these massive sweep of human history things happening. And we can't do it today, but we've done many times on my show, talked about how from the time of the founding of Islam, there has always been an effort, a massive pushing out from the areas where it was founded into various parts of the world, taking over those areas of the world, the Ottoman Empire, the whole pushing of Islam to take over. And it wasn't just to spread the good news of Islam and share their faith, it was to force conversion or death, and force conversion in countries all over the world. And that history, sadly, hasn't been taught in too many places. And so I think people aren't alert enough to recognize the profound era of history that we're watching, and that maybe we could do something about if we understood it, but they don't even know.
Yes, I think that's right. I think, you know, there's two sides to this. One, we're not allowed to talk about it, so you can't really hear it so well, because someone like me tries to speak of it, as I have been for 10 or so years, and the punishment that one has to endure for trying to be that voice is quite extreme, in terms of my own personal punishment meted out on me by my country.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is, and it is the more joyous thing, and I think I'm always inclined to that, is that of all the times to live through, now is the time. And I meet people daily who tell me they would never have lived at any other time, and I believe that. Like, I believe the strongest of us were called to be here now for a reason. This is the massive fight we're in, and what makes me so happy about your Second Amendment, your First, your Constitution, you have things that separate you from us. So not only like great customer service and really good teeth, because like you have those things as well that we just don't, but you have a constitution and you have your Second Amendment. And when I go about the place here, you cannot buy a weapon in California right now. I spent time on the range, all those cabinets are empty. There's no ammunition you can buy. You know, Americans are not taking this lying down. They are not taking this lying down. Oh,
that is so true. In Texas, it's hard to find.
You can't.
Yeah, either ammunition or weapons, because everyone's recognized we may be really heading to a very, very serious crisis time. And people who, in fact, we had gun store owners talking about people coming in saying, you know, I never really thought I would want a gun. I'm not really a gun person, but I can see what's going to happen to my country. I can see where we're headed. And I want to be ready. I want to be able to defend myself and my family and my home. And you know, I agree with you about living in profoundly consequential times. I used to give little speeches about the founding of America and how it took people with a little bit of fire in their belly and a little bit of just kind of determination. They were not going to live as subjects to King George. They were going to convince the people around them, you know, we can do something different here. We don't have to just live forever as subjects, but we have to find that spirit of fight, of independence. We have to come together. We have to decide we can do this and get in the fight. That attitude formed the most consequential country in all world history, and we're at a similar place at this time. We were speaking of Islam and Islam invading UK and Western Europe and America. So we have Islamic supremacy or Islamic aggression. But and then the other kind of cabal, the cabal of ideas on the left of radical climate stuff. I know I mentioned earlier, but the radical climate agenda, the Green New Deal, is another destroy America, destroy freedom, destroy free enterprise. And you have the weakening of the American military, the trying to abandon the idea of sovereignty and American borders. And we're going to have just a big global happy family. All of that lives on the American left. It's all aimed at destroying America.
And I think we talked earlier about welcoming people to our side, or come with us in the side of the joy and the light. And I think that's true of this idea of we're preparing for whatever will come the day after the election or thereafter, is that our side is a great side to be on for this, because I've spent a lot of time now with big men and strong women who are prepared, who are saying, come on then, let's see, because we're going to be ready for this time. And I think that's the joy of our side too, is we're preparing to defend our families, our homes. And I say this as a respectful outsider, and bear in mind you've chased the British out of here more than once before. So, that feels very purposeful for me. In times of darkness and in times of uncertainty, having a purpose of preparation from a military perspective is very apt. I also think, what makes me see the contrast there is that sadly for the other side, who won't make it through the back end of this, that with their yard signs, they're trying to defend themselves with these yard signs that I see, these Black Lives Matter. And I've watched very weak and inept men, I say men in the loosest sense, it's undecipherable really what they are, hammering these lawn signs in with the sort of dedication that real men build walls or fences to protect their families, right? They think this Black Lives Matter yard sign is going to defend them. My news to you is that Black Lives Matter will not save you when the mob comes. The ignorance of these people is quite overwhelming at times.
It is. I definitely want to close out our interview on a joyful note, because you're so irrepressibly joyful, even in the middle of all that we're watching. So again, on your tour around America, you told one story, and I hope I can give you enough hints so you know what I'm talking about, a story about going to a meeting in California where you were seeing in the eyes of people, grown men, and getting teary, talking about, wow, I came to a place where there's joy, there's love of America, there's energy, there's happiness. Can you describe what that was happening?
So this is gatherings in California, and this was kind of a month or so ago, so still early in terms of breaking lockdowns. People gathering together in yards. Someone called it a John Lewis Memorial, but it was actually, our side.
They called it a John. Okay,
yeah, we all had to have a moment of quiet while we pretended that. But the point was, you saw these men who over the last 8 months for them, their lives have been destroyed. So not only did they lose their job, but because they lost their job, their marriage went, and then their children went with maybe their wife. And these men would be crying. I've had more men cry on me in the last 8 weeks than I have, I think, in my life. But because they felt like they'd come home to their people, and I have this with my Jewish friends who are moving to Israel, when people come home, they feel comfortable and they're able to release all this stuff.
Yes.
And that's what our side is now. This isn't left or right. This isn't red or blue. This is about coming home. And this is the heart of America. And I encourage anybody who's out there feeling hurt or lonely or lost or broken or beaten, and it doesn't matter who you hated before in your past, come home, because we will look after you, and then we'll be able to look after America. And then at some point I promise to leave you and go back to the UK as well.
We don't really want you to leave. I wish your whole family would come here. That's my wish, was that you and your whole family could be here. But I love that. I love that sense of coming home. It's really coming home among many things, to love of America.
Yeah, come home. This is the place you're and again, forgive, I know I'm a foreigner, but your nation, your great country, the greatest country on earth, was built on the values that are of home, and that's, you are a United States of America because you all believe that this is your home. Come home, feel better, and build this place back up.
I love that. Katie Hopkins, how can people help you? I mean, I'm sure a lot of people ask you, but how can people help you?
For now, help me by voting for 4 more years for Donald J. Trump. And if you want to follow me or me on my journey, I'm on the new app called Parler, because obviously Twitter had to remove me because I have too much influence. But Parler is Parler. And on there I'm at KT Hopkins.
I think it's on the bottom of the screen. It was, you can, but at KT, the capital T, Hopkins.
Capital T, Hopkins. And it just in case people want to get in touch or follow my journey or be part of coming home, or I can help bring you home, come find me on there.
I love that. I love that. I might steal that idea. Come home to America.
Come home. The dogma is strong in us. Come home.
Oh, that's really great. Tying back to our first segment. Katie Hopkins, thank you so much for being here today. It was just completely delightful to talk to you.
Thank you for having me in your studio.
Folks, I'm going to do one more quick story today. I'm so glad Katie happened to be available and here to join me today and talk about what she's doing in America, because her message is really what every American needs to hear, what we all have to be saying to each other. I love several of her messages. Come home to America. Come home to love of America. Come home to just the country that has been the source of freedom and opportunity and joy and greatness since its founding. And really, right now, it's about the last bastion in the world to stand up for unique greatness of America. Well, I want to do one more quick story. New York Times ran a story. They actually got a hold of Donald Trump's tax returns. And so they ran a long story arguing about or pointing out things that they thought were offensive. But we can maybe dive in someday into some of the things that they were objecting to. But I want to make just a few quick points about this. Number one, they are so frequently attacking President Trump, and it's almost like when you see the story that the New York Times ran Donald Trump's tax returns, that it's a blasé, yeah, okay, of course they did, whatever. Number one, it is actually illegal for whoever released those tax returns, whether it was IRS official, whether it was a district attorney who for some reason has them, whoever released them committed a crime. We lose track of this. You're actually supposed to have privacy of your tax returns. There is no law that says any candidate, any elected official must release their tax returns. If Donald Trump didn't want to release them and he's willing to take the political pushback, which he decided to do, he's entitled to do that. But this is the New York Times running. Whoever did release it was illegal. Then the New York Times, completely unconcerned that whoever gave them Donald Trump's tax returns violated law. They're happy to run them. And so this is if I talk about the term the Democrat media mob or the leftist media, this is the left telling you, we don't even care about the law anymore. We're so determined to get President Trump. We'll go ahead and release something and write whatever it was, an 8-page article about the contents of his tax returns. And the core thing, remember, is they had no legal right to do this. And this coming from a paper that cannot seem to muster up the intellectual integrity to even point out the far worse actions by the other guy running for president, Joe Biden, his son, Burisma, the whole mess in the Ukraine. Conservatives have to fight to get a tiny bit of attention on the far worse corruption of Joe Biden and his son and his family and Burisma, because the New York Times is not going to cover it. So the big story is not whatever the details were of his tax return. The big story is, again, a huge window on how much the New York Times and the radical left in this country hates Donald Trump. Other quick takeaways so far, and at least the perusal to start with, nothing illegal. It wasn't like they uncovered an illegal contribution from Russia or some other idiotic thing that doesn't exist, some proof of the Russia collusion hoax. That was not in there. Nothing illegal found. What they really found so far is the idea that President Trump only paid the amount of taxes that he was obligated to under federal law. Raise your hand if you know anyone who ever completes their tax returns and thinks, wow, that's all I owe. Maybe I'll send in more. Let me just throw in another $1 million. No one does that. Everyone tries to send in the legal amount, but the least that you have to do. Nothing that he did, at least they've covered so far, is illegal. It's simply using the tax code put in place by the federal government. The law is there to direct people how you treat your income, what is deductible, what kind of write-offs are permissible, what are not. And if you don't like that, if you don't like the fact that he didn't have to pay a high amount of taxes in some year because of those kind of laws, then, lobby your congressman, change the laws. But the big takeaway of this New York Times story today is not that there was a massive wrong uncovered by the exposure of these taxes. It is that the left is telling you they're more determined to take down President Trump than they are to comply with the law or to respect the law. And the best they could come up with, in fact, one of the lines in the article was that kind of the naysayers, the haters, are going to be disappointed because all the stuff they thought might be in there, they're saying the haters' goal was unfulfilled by the report because there wasn't all the stuff in there that the leftist haters of President Trump wish they would find. As I do at the close of every show, I turn to tell you why the stories we talked about today matter to you. So we started today's show talking about the Supreme Court and the Barrett battle. Feinstein left-wing assault on Judge Amy Coney Barrett focused on the Catholic faith as too dogmatic. Dogma lives loudly in you. But what's dogma? I mean, really, the word just means a principle or set of principles laid down by an authority as incontrovertibly true. And let me just say something here that's not in that slide, but why would anyone be a member of a faith if you didn't believe what they were teaching is true? I mean, why would anyone? That's the whole point of supporting a faith, because you believe in what they teach. But back to this dogma discussion. In America's birth certificate, the Declaration of Independence lays down American dogma, which is the self-evident truths: all men and women created equal by God, all endowed at birth with inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Barrett's Catholic faith is aligned and consistent with American dogma. To claim it to disqualify is ridiculous, and Barrett's bipartisan legal colleagues uniformly confirm she's qualified. Leftism is dogma. No God but government, separation of church and state, and abortion on demand. Americans want fidelity to American dogma at the Supreme Court. Barrett confirmation is a no-brainer and will be popular with Americans. And on Trump taxes, the New York Times, tax returns illegally released and wrongfully published to create a hit piece on Trump. This is following the Russia collusion leaks and fabrications, to an impeachment scam that really reeked of Biden's corruption and venality, to the pandemic fear-mongering to sustain the lockdowns, to made-up stories about put-downs of American soldiers at a French cemetery. There is no law the mainstream media, deep state will not break. There's no law the mainstream media, deep state will not tell. No lie they will not tell to remove the threat to their power represented by the re-election of President Trump. This is the story Americans see, no matter how the New York Times and others spin it. Plus, there's no evidence of any illegality on the part of Trump and no connection to Russia. This hit piece only hurt the mainstream media and the New York Times. Trump voters see right through the New York Times. And that, my very fine friends, is America Can We Talk for today. Tune in every Monday through Thursday at 3 p.m. Central Time to America Can We Talk, where I always talk truth about America because America matters. And I will talk to you next time.
America Can We Talk? Truth about America.